Hello everyone. Tonight I bring you a story that lingers between reality and legend, between documented fact and whispered folklore. It is a tale about a place that once existed, a place full of lives, laughter, struggles, and simple daily routines, a village that, according to accounts, vanished overnight. Not a slow decline, not a migration over time, but a sudden disappearance that left homes intact, belongings scattered, and yet no trace of the villagers who once lived there. This is the mystery of the Vanishing Village, a story that has perplexed historians, terrified travelers, and puzzled researchers for generations. Imagine for a moment walking along a quiet road that winds into a countryside. You expect to find fields, maybe scattered farmhouses, or perhaps the smell of cooking fires in the distance. But instead, you stumble upon a village where everything is eerily silent. The wooden doors creak on their hinges, food sits on tables as if someone had just stepped away to fetch water, and clothes hang on lines untouched by wind. Yet there is no one, no footsteps, no voices, no children playing. It is as if life itself has been snatched away in an instant, leaving behind a ghostly shell. This image is the beginning of the legend of the village that disappeared overnight. Stories like this surface across cultures and continents, but the one I'll share with you tonight focuses on a small settlement, once thriving, tucked between hills and forests. Its name has faded with time. In some stories it is given different titles, in others no name at all. Some say this vagueness is intentional, perhaps to keep the place hidden, while others believe the mystery itself erased its identity. Whatever the truth, the descriptions all align in haunting detail. The village was said to be home to about 200 people. Farmers, weavers, children, elders. Life moved with the rhythm of the seasons. Fields bore wheat, livestock grazed in meadows, and traditions tied people together. Neighbors celebrated festivals in the square, where songs echoed under the night sky. Travelers often spoke of the kindness of its people, their hospitality, and the sense of community. There was nothing remarkable about it from the outside. It was an ordinary place, ordinary in its joys and sorrows. Perhaps that's what makes its sudden disappearance so chilling. One evening, witnesses from nearby settlements reported seeing faint lights flicker above the village. At first, many thought it was a festival, torches or lanterns carried by villagers. Some thought it might be lightning caught in clouds above the valley, but others said the lights were strange, moving in patterns, glowing unnaturally, almost like stars had descended to dance on earth. The accounts are vague, but consistent enough that even skeptics admit something unusual was observed. The following morning, travelers passing through found the village abandoned, doors unlocked, meals left half-eaten, even water still warm in kettles. Livestock wandered freely, untended. Dogs barked at empty homes as though searching for their masters. Strangest of all, no signs of struggle or panic were found. No overturned furniture, no hurried footprints. It was as though the people had stepped out for a moment and never returned. The discovery quickly spread to surrounding towns. Fear took hold. Many refused to approach the place, convinced it was cursed. Others ventured in, driven by curiosity or greed, hoping to take abandoned goods. But nearly all who entered reported an overwhelming sense of dread. Some claimed to hear whispers carried by the wind. A few said they saw shadows move inside houses where no one lived. And there are accounts, though difficult to verify, of travelers who entered the village and never returned. Naturally, explanations arose. Some said disease struck suddenly, forcing villagers to flee into the night. But if that were true, where were the bodies or at least signs of departure? Others whispered of supernatural forces, angry spirits perhaps, or an ancient curse laid upon the land. A few spoke of the lights in the sky, insisting they were not lanterns nor lightning, but something otherworldly, suggesting that the entire village had been taken, abducted, by a force beyond human understanding. Over time, the story became tangled with myth, yet there are details that lend weight to its authenticity. Documents in old archives reference a silent village, discovered abandoned in the mid-18th century. A traveler's journal describes his shock at walking through a place full of houses and hearths, yet void of breath and life. Local folklore still warns children not to wander too close to the valley where the vanished village once stood. And most intriguing of all, modern researchers who attempted to locate the site report unusual anomalies, compasses spinning erratically, electronic equipment malfunctioning, and a heavy silence that defies explanation. As with all mysteries, the absence of certainty only deepens the allure. Some historians argue that people may have migrated suddenly, perhaps due to famine or threat of attack. Yet the evidence contradicts this. Why leave meals on tables, tools mid-use, or leave stock behind? Why vanish without taking belongings, without leaving tracks? Others suggest environmental phenomena, like poisonous gas seeping from underground fissures, forcing a sudden evacuation. But again, this fails to explain why there were no bodies, no signs of collapse or struggle. And so the theories multiply. One particularly chilling legend claims that on certain nights, when the moon is high and the air unnaturally still, the village reappears. Travelers who claim to have seen it describe faint outlines of houses glowing softly in the darkness, voices carried faintly on the wind, and shadows moving as though people still live there. But the stories come with warnings. Those who enter the phantom village are never seen again. Imagine the terror of standing on a quiet path, looking into a valley where a ghostly town flickers into existence. Would you dare to step closer? Would you enter the silent streets, knowing that hundreds before you did and vanished? The mystery of the Vanishing Village continues to captivate because it sits on the edge of possibility. Too strange to be ordinary, yet too consistent to be dismissed entirely. Now, let me take you deeper into the tale by weaving together the accounts, the whispers, and the fragments of history that survive. Picture the evening before the disappearance. Villagers going about their tasks. Mothers calling children in for supper. Farmers returning from fields. Elders gathering near the fire. The air filled with the scent of bread baking. The sounds of laughter echoing across the square. It was a night like any other, perhaps warmer than usual, perhaps touched by a strange stillness. Then the lights appeared. At first, people looked up in wonder. Strange orbs drifting slowly above the rooftops. Some thought it was an omen, others a blessing. Children clapped in delight, chasing the lights with curious eyes. But as the glow grew stronger, unease spread. Livestock grew restless, dogs howled, and the air grew heavy, thick with something unseen. Witnesses from afar described the lights descending lower, bathing the entire village in an otherworldly glow. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the lights vanished. Silence followed, and by morning, so too had the villagers. What happened in those hours remains the question that has haunted storytellers for centuries. Were they taken? Did they cross into another realm? Or was there something beneath the land itself that consumed them whole? As I continue this story, remember that mysteries like this survive because they refuse to be explained. They resist the simple answers we crave. Instead, they linger, inviting us to question the edges of our reality. The silence left behind in the vanished village was only the beginning. As the tale spread, whispers turned into warnings, and soon the place became a forbidden ground. Those who lived in surrounding towns would tell their children never to go near the valley, not even in daylight. But fear has always had a curious twin, fascination. For every frightened villager who avoided the valley, there were travelers, researchers, and wanderers who wanted to see the mystery with their own eyes. The earliest known investigation happened just weeks after the disappearance. A small group of men from a neighboring settlement decided to explore the village, both to recover valuables and to uncover what happened. They carried lanterns, tools, and weapons, prepared for anything. What they found unsettled them deeply. Inside the houses, the air was stale, as though time itself had frozen. Meals sat untouched, with bread hardened on plates. In one home, a needle remained threaded in half, finished fabric, waiting for hands that would never return. In another, a pitcher of milk sat souring in the corner, yet not a single sign explained where the villagers had gone. One man described hearing faint murmurs, like conversations just beyond the wall, but when he turned, he saw only empty rooms. Another claimed to see movement, a figure slipping past a doorway, but upon searching, found nothing. By the time the men left, their faces were pale, and though they carried some goods with them, none dared return a second time. Rumors of curses spread quickly. Some said the land itself had rejected the people, swallowing them into another realm. Others believed the villagers had angered unseen forces, spirits of the forest, or perhaps older entities tied to the soil and sky. A chilling tale emerged, one that suggested the villagers were not merely gone, but still there, trapped between worlds. Generations later, the legend persisted. Farmers claimed their cattle refused to graze near the valley. Hunters spoke of hearing voices calling their names, luring them toward the silent homes. Travelers at night reported strange glowing shapes flickering in the distance, like lanterns bobbing through the trees. Yet those who followed the lights often became disoriented, circling endlessly, unable to find their way until dawn. In the 19th century, a historian named Elias Morrell set out to investigate the village. He was a rational man, dismissing tales of curses. His notes describe the landscape vividly. The valley is calm, the homes stand as though waiting, yet the silence weighs heavily. One feels watched, though no living soul is seen. Morrell stayed 2 nights, carefully documenting the state of the abandoned homes. On the 3rd night, he wrote of hearing distant chanting, low, rhythmic, rising from the direction of the square. When he rushed to investigate, he found nothing but an empty plaza beneath the moonlight. His final entry reads, "Something unseen moves here, something that does not welcome strangers." Morrell vanished shortly after. His belongings were found, but his body was never recovered. That disappearance added fuel to the legend. Many came to believe the village itself consumed those who lingered too long. Over time, more stories emerged. A group of soldiers passing through the area during wartime refused to camp near the ruins, claiming they saw figures standing in the windows at night. An explorer in the early 20th century reported hearing laughter echoing through the streets, though the houses were empty. In more recent years, hikers who dared venture into the valley spoke of sudden coldness, compasses spinning wildly, and phones shutting down without reason. Theories have evolved with time. Some modern researchers propose scientific explanations. One theory suggests underground gas pockets, carbon monoxide or methane, could have seeped into the air, causing hallucinations or mass unconsciousness. Perhaps the villagers fled in confusion, never to return, but if so, why were no remains found? Why did their livestock remain untouched, their possessions abandoned? Others point to tectonic activity, claiming strange magnetic fields might exist beneath the valley, disrupting compasses and electronics, and perhaps disorienting people fatally. Yet these explanations feel incomplete, unable to satisfy the depth of mystery. The lights in the sky remain a core detail. Skeptics dismiss them as atmospheric phenomena, like ball lightning, but witnesses describe them as deliberate, moving with purpose. Some believe they were crafts, not of this earth, suggesting that the villagers were taken, an entire population abducted by forces unknown. Such a theory seems incredible, and yet it lingers, whispered by those who study both folklore and the unexplained. Perhaps the most chilling stories are the ones that suggest the village never truly left. Travelers passing the valley sometimes claim they can still see it, whole, vibrant, alive. Smoke rising from chimneys, voices drifting through the air, even the sound of music. But when they step closer, the vision fades, leaving only ruins. A few rare accounts speak of people entering these apparitions and finding themselves surrounded by villagers who act as though nothing ever happened. Those who claim to have experienced this say the villagers look different. Their eyes do not blink, their smiles are too wide, and their movements are just slightly wrong. Those who speak of it rarely speak twice, often falling into silence afterward. The most frightening element of the legend is this: people still vanish near the valley. In the last century alone, a handful of hikers and wanderers were reported missing in the area. Their belongings were sometimes recovered, but not their bodies. Authorities dismiss it as accidents, people lost in the wilderness. Yet locals shake their heads and whisper, the village takes who it wants. So, what truly happened to the villagers that night long ago? Did they flee, victims of natural disaster or invasion, their story twisted into myth? Did an invisible hand pluck them from reality, leaving only shells of their lives behind? Or does the village itself exist in another dimension, flickering between worlds, waiting for those curious enough, or foolish enough, to step inside? No matter which explanation one chooses, the vanished village remains an enduring riddle. Its story has traveled across generations, passed down in hushed tones, embroidered with fear. It reminds us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some linger precisely because they resist reason, forcing us to confront the limits of what we know. If you ever find yourself traveling near forgotten valleys, where silence hangs too heavy and the air feels strange, remember this tale. Some places do not wish to be disturbed, and if you see lights flickering above an empty town, do not go closer. For once you step inside, you may never return. The story of the Vanishing Village is not only about those who disappeared centuries ago. It is about all who still vanish when curiosity pulls them toward the unknown. Perhaps even now, under a silver moon, the villagers walk their silent streets, waiting for the next traveler to join them. And maybe, just maybe, tonight, as you listen to this story, the village is listening too.